Mocha was the first city to actually witness the discovery of coffee. Sufis were now in the city and they were in the port. These are people who actually had their daily jobs, and trade was one of their main jobs. Now in Mocha, interestingly, people were coming from different places, of course, because that was the port city, and people were trading. Coffee caravans were set here for the first time. We could even say that maybe the first ever coffee shop was here. And after this great discovery, we wonder, how did the news of coffee actually spread all around the world? It's definitely Hajj, and that was where Imam al-Shadhili and his disciples were aiming to go anyway in the first place. Now Hajj was quite different actually at the time. We're talking about the 13th century. Hajj was such an important event for the Muslim world because this is where they would come together and they would have the kind of gathering events. In Hajj, one could observe a culture like a fair. So they had people coming from different places, from the Balkans to Bengal. They would have people coming from the China, from the most western parts of the Muslim world. Now, according to some observations and some historians, majalis of coffee were quite present in Hajj, and people would sit in a round circle, and then there would be someone carrying a big red clay pot giving people from this magical elixir. Now Hajj was the first time that Muslims actually had tried coffee, and this obviously made a very significant change in history, because now coffee would have spread all around the world. Coffee actually, according to Al-Jazari's manuscript, which was translated very recently, it talks about how coffee spread from Yemen, or what is called today as Arabia Felix, from Yemen to Mecca and Medina firstly, and then to Constantinople, Baghdad, Damascus and Cairo. Actually, Cairo was maybe the first place that coffee had become a culture. But we should not forget Constantinople and Damascus, because these two cities played a very crucial role in the spread of the coffee culture. One of the first coffee shops, and maybe one of the first coffee houses or majalis of coffee, happened in Cairo. We had Al-Azhar University in Cairo, which was a very promising spot for the coffee house. It was because people of knowledge would be around these places and spaces, and that's why coffee actually cherished and blossomed very easily around these spots. Now coffee had become a culture, and there was majalis of knowledge and different types of majalis in Cairo, in Azhar. Don't forget, Cairo at this time was under the Mamalik, and Cairo and Mecca were also together in this dynasty. Despite actually Mecca being at that time a very important city, the first ever ban on coffee came in Mecca, even if Cairo was the center of the dynasty. Now there was a ban on coffee in Mecca, and what happened is that the governor of the city actually burned the stocks of the people, and he sent his forces to capture the coffee vendors, and it was a big problem for these people because it disrupted their business. But fortunately, saner heads prevailed, and people counseled the Sultan Qaid Bey at that time in Cairo that this was happening, and the ban was lifted, and once more coffee was flowing freely in the streets of Mecca and Cairo. Now obviously we don't want to see it from one perspective only, because when coffee was banned, it was banned from religious reasons, and one of the muftis at that time in Mecca had said that coffee was an intoxicating drink and unhealthy, hence it would be prohibited by Islam. But we don't look at it only from this perspective. We need to understand that coffee actually had become a major economic trend as well, and when coffee business was going good, this also meant good for the Sultan and the dynasty, because they were making money off this trade. Now coffee had become very important. It had become so important that it actually overrun spices and sugar because of the amount of business people were making with coffee. Smuggling coffee at that time from Yemen or the Muslim dynasties was actually punishable by death. So everyone was very, very careful on how they dealt with coffee business. The Muslims now had a monopoly over the industry of coffee because they were controlling the trade of coffee. And we will talk about some funny ideas later, how colonial powers from the West actually tried to smuggle coffee in very funny ways. But this didn't stop the Muslims, and coffee became a very big business. Now, coffee was found in Ethiopia as a bean, but it was firstly brewed in Yemen, and it became a drink there. But then it made its way around the Muslim world, from Baghdad to Damascus to Constantinople, where it would take actually a very crucial role.